So let's jump into some Transformers Authentics news. We talked about it briefly when JT Prime 17 gave a whole bunch of listings for a future line of Transformers Authentics mini bot racers. And I had a sneaking suspicion of what this was probably going to be based on similar kind of trademarks and what has existed in the past from the, I guess we'll call it lower price point, simplistic Transformer stuff that existed within, let's say, the Rescue Bots universe. And I was right, but there's some interesting twists here and some cool stuff to discuss, and we'll go into that, as well as a quick Patreon question at the end of this, because it's a small one, and I figured I'll just put it into this segment too, because it'll all work out together quite nicely. So we got 4 listings. We got a Transformers Authentics mini racer assortment that we talked about just a couple days ago, a Transformers Authentics Cyber Battlers assortment, and a Transformers Authentics mask assortment. Now, the Authentics line is essentially a non-continuity kind of line, using kind of different flavors and ideas from all the different continuities mashed into one to give a cheap and affordable price point for these items across the world. Some of these are used for South America, some of these are used for cheaper Asian regions, but of course they will also show up in Market 6 stuff, well, if that term still existed today, but Market 6 stuff in the Western world, whether it be the United States, Canada, and even that of Europe. So let's go through these. What are these? What's the story going on? And then we'll do the Patreon question. So the first thing is, like we talked about a couple days ago, these authentic mini racers. Now we know what they are, how they look, and the price point. They're going to be $3.99 each, and they're pretty much straight up repaints of what I assumed they were going to be straight up repaints of the Rescue Bots mini bot racers. It even has a similar kind of packaging for how they're being sold and how they're displayed in stores. They're these little Transformer figures that have a vehicle mode and that have a flip up roof that then shows a robot mode head. This idea existed long before this, even with Dark of the Moon and some of the movie stuff, the Bumpin' Battlers, you know, an old idea, a simple concept for a more preschool and younger demographic. What's interesting about it this time is while they did take all the original molds from the previous release of these, the original ones came out in early 2002, and they had Rescue Bots flavor to it. So it was Optimus Prime from Rescue Bots, Hotshot from Rescue Bots, Bumblebee, the Whirl from Rescue Bots, which is a female character, Hoist, which had a very different kind of color scheme, and Heatwave from the Rescue Bots line. All of these were Rescue Bots based. What they did this time around is they took all of the molds minus Heatwave, and they turned some of them into Generation 1 flavored characters. I mean, I'll kind of get deep into the weeds of it. So Optimus is still the same, Bumblebee is still the same, and they kept the Hoist in that kind of bizarre turquoisey color scheme that it has there. So then it says to myself, okay, so these are Rescue Bots continuity kind of stuff, I guess, right? Because of that Hoist. So they also have here, they took the Whirl, which Whirl in the show, Rescue Bots had multiple different alt modes, and Whirl at one point, despite being a helicopter, also had a car mode. They took the Whirl car mode, gave it a pink color scheme, and now it is Arcee. So is this aligned continuity Arcee? Is it, if it's aligned continuity Arcee, why isn't it also blue? If it's blue, then wouldn't it just be Whirl all over again? I know I'm getting deep into the weeds of the silliness of that. I feel that this is just, we're going for some kind of catch-all, you know, flavor here, and Arcee equals pink, and that's what they're going with. And they're just using the Whirl mold because traditionally with Transformers, if it's a female mold, you could practically attach any other female character to it in general. So that's kind of the way that the Hasbro machine thinks with a lot of this kind of stuff. When we get to the other repaint, they took Hotshot and they pretty much painted it into what I believe 100% is Trailbreaker, judging by the deco and the color scheme here. Sure, that's kind of cool. Generation 1 deco, you know, Trailbreaker, 80s kind of look. I dig it. That's probably the most interesting of the 5 here. Again, they left out Heatwave. I don't know why they left him out, because now it would be a case assortment of a, you know, originally it was 6, now it's 5. I don't know, maybe they couldn't think of a repaint for him. Maybe they didn't want to go with the same color scheme and really hammer down that it's Rescue Bots related. Maybe they didn't want to go with an Inferno color scheme because it'd be pretty much the same colors. If that's the case, then why not do, I don't know, Hotspot? You know, add some blue to this kind of mixture, a light blue. I don't know. Just my take on that one. I'm pretty sure a lot of you are not going to care. Of me, again, it's the two new ones, the Arcee and the Trailbreaker, the only ones that kind of catch my attention. Everything else is kind of blasé. Next up, we have the Authentic Cyber Battlers. This was an idea that was originally a Walmart exclusive, and I want to say this was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It's these simple 5 to 4 inch PVC figures with 3 points of articulation, the head and both shoulders. Pretty much just for the arms. And the original ones were much more Generation 1 flavored. It was Optimus, it was Bumblebee, it was Shockwave, it was Megatron, it was Starscream, and I believe there was a Soundwave also. And now they're doing the same thing. More of an Authentics kind of aesthetic now, which is, again, a fusion of all the different brands. And now we just have Optimus, Megatron, and Bumblebee. Sure, okay. Again, non-transformable, 3 points of articulation, hard PVC plastic, so hollow in the center. Great for kids. And last but not least, we have the Transformers Authentics mask assortment, an Optimus Prime, a Bumblebee. They started doing these cheap mask assortment kind of stuff around the time of Robots in Disguise 2015, and they're continuing that trend going into the Authentics line. Again, this is stuff that's made for markets. You're going to go into Walgreens and this stuff is going to be there. You're going to go into Big Lots or some of your more like pharmacy kind of places, maybe even your CVS, and this kind of stuff will be there. It's the more cheaper kind of assortment stuff that just works for that demo. Again, the masks are $4.99, the Cyber Battler PVC figures are $4.99, and the racers are $3.99. It'll be out soon. Keep an eye out if it interests you. Now, the last thing we're going to cover here is we have a Patreon listener question. It was a real short one, so I figured I'd just kind of tag it along to this one too. And it's a Patreon listener question from Starlight4, and they want to know. I'd like to ask a Patreon listener question: what causes plastic degradation, and how many Studio Series Transformers suffer from it? It's a real thing, and I've seen tabs that don't stay on all my Grindor, Jazz, and Soundwave figures. They have snapped off, and my barricade won't stay. Thank you for the Patreon listener question, Starlight4. I'll be honest with you, like, Transformers don't really suffer from plastic degradation. They're made out of pretty good plastic. I mean, unless you're talking stuff that has, like, I guess, PVC plastic, that could degrade, you know, when you're talking PVC or vinyl. But that's kind of like, I mean, again, in the My Little Pony community, they have a term for it. They call it pony cancer. That stuff breaks down. But the stuff that you've listed here is all ABS and MABS and AABS plastic. And it doesn't really suffer from it doesn't degrade. I mean, Transformer toys have photo degradation. You know, they turn yellow. They have GPS, where the plastic, you know, breaks down in a different kind of way because of the choice of how it was sculpted. But these guys here essentially are not the case, especially the Studio Series stuff. Studio Series as a whole has not had any overall QC issues. I guess we'll call it that. We'll use the term QC. There has been individual cases. People bought something and they broke off the head, but it would always be an individual case. The only one that I've ever seen, and again, the only way that we could have these kind of discussions that could be factual is you have to have large numbers and groups of examples in order to say that there's something wrong with an individual figure. Jaws D, he loves his Studio Series Jazz. He bought multiple of them. You mentioned here that your Studio Series Jazz broke. Jaws D bought multiple, transformed multiple, took beautiful photo shoots, and never had any problems. And he would mention something to me if something went down. Again, I've only had one of each, so I've never had problems. But again, you need to kind of have a large number of the same figure to kind of see if there is a ongoing issue across all of them. I could buy one toy and have a problem with it, but maybe it's just my one version. I got a lemon. I got a dud. And the only one that I saw, and I actually did a little research for this question to see if anyone else has had any problems, was the Studio Series SS-59 Bumblebee movie Shatter, the one that turns into the jet. She seems to have a lot of problems with her back rudders and stuff. There was a lot of QC issues with that one. And there was one or two mentions of the Corvette Revenge of the Fallen sideswipe. And when I mean the Corvette, I mean the one that actually had the hard top, not the one that had the no top, which is the Dark of the Moon version. So that specific sideswipe from Revenge of the Fallen had issues also, but it was only 2 cases of it. Everything else I've seen, it was tons of people loving like their brawl, and then one person like busting the head off, or tons of people loving one of their Devastator limbs, and one example out of all of them, one person having a problem. So pretty much only anecdotal cases. But otherwise, I haven't seen much problems in terms of Studio Series as a whole. So it really, I don't know, maybe you just have bad luck. Maybe you got a, bad case of certain figures. But I haven't really seen cases of it. And again, it has nothing to do with degradation of the plastic. These are brand new figures that are like, fresh. Even stuff like GPS. GPS doesn't really start becoming a thing for figures until 3 to 5 years into their aging, when they really start to, I guess, get exposed to the elements, and then the expansion and contraction on a microscopic level that then causes the brittleness of the plastic, which causes GPS or BPS or stuff like that. But I don't want to get too deep into that. I did a panel with Aaron Archer where we talked about it. It's crazy stuff. But the point is, I don't really think, I mean, plastic in general lasts forever. I mean, if you buried like one of these Studio Series toys and you came back in 10 years, it's going to be fine. It could have everything going on there. These things are pretty resilient. I think it's more just, either you have some bad luck and there was like a dud that you got from the factory that was assembled badly or stress marked before it was even put into the box, or I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you got to be a little more careful with your product and maybe handle it with soft hands, like some of the masterpieces. I could understand with some of like, Hound. Hound was a good example. Masterpiece Hound, some people had to really handle it with kid gloves. Got to be careful. So that might be the case with you. Maybe you might have to handle some of these a little more carefully. I personally haven't had, but I don't want to use my own anecdotal example. That's why I kind of looked for like, nice pools of examples of stuff, and really only Shatter's the one that I see that really had across the board any kind of issues. I know there's probably going to be comments saying like, well, I had a problem with this. That's true, but has there been many people that have had a problem with XYZ character or figure? I can think of older Transformer stuff that some of them had issues, and again, some of the recent masterpieces, but not really so much in the case of this stuff. I mean, let's talk Star Wars crossover Transformers. Whew, a lot of problems with that one, but that almost wasn't even done by Hasbro's normal crew. That was a whole different story. Anyways, I hope that kind of answers that a little bit. I think you just got to kind of be a little bit more careful with your toys. And be careful of that Shatter figure then, if that's the case. SS-59, Bumblebee movie, Jet Shatter. Careful with that one. That one's got a little bit of a problem. But yeah, again, if you want to be a patron, much like Hammy, a.k.a. Starlight4 here, again, patreon.com/Protoman. Check the pinned comment or description below. And let me know what you think of those authentics if you're actually interested in that stuff. Because I know it's not really marketed at us, but there might be something going on there.